another thing that I was going to say. If I can't verify my vote and I can't make somebody live up to their own promises, what the fuck am I doing? I'm just like hopeful. I'm throwing out, yeah, I believe in you. Go out there and do it. And if you can't do it, then no worries. We'll just wait for the next person that can. And it just becomes this fucking distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Because who said it? Mark Twain said, if voting really mattered, they'd never let us do it. And I understand why he's saying that. Mm-hmm. Because it really does come to a point where if the people really were able to lead themselves, then they would have no reason for a financial institution or a central banking system. They would be able to understand that, okay, we're all in this together, and if something is driving us apart, we need to do away with that.
Agreed. And I think that I think politicians and the government is a huge dog and pony show to distract us and to keep us not really looking behind the curtain of who's pulling the shots. It's a huge distraction, and if you notice, it's strategically planned. And for example, they like to hype things up that don't need a lot of hype. For example, hey, looks like what a person died of. We don't know if it was a terrorist, and we don't know what's going on. And you'll just see it on the news. And I'm not saying that just one person. That's terrible. It's unpleasant. But you'll see it like for days, and they're like, it might be a terrorist. It might be a terrorist. And then we have something like the coronavirus that gets very little media coverage. And I've been reading some side stuff on this. For example, another show on our network, Third Eye Political Radio, we have a show called The Rebellion, and my friend Rebel runs that one, and she posted something that she had gotten through the grapevine, and it was a retired general or military person that lives in China, and he was saying, things are closed down here. We have, I think they call them parishes or something, I don't know, closed down, and guess where most of our medical and medicine comes from? Comes from China, and if things are not running and they're closed down, we are consumers from hell. How much longer before we're running out of medical supplies and medicine because China's closed down because they're infected. They have to close it down and keep everyone as safe as they can, or keep it from spreading. Well, if you haven't been to a store lately, and you live under a rock, I'll let you know everything's made in China. So
what? What? No. Bernie talked about that Walmart shit last night.
What did he say?
Fantastic. You didn't see it? He was talking about Walmart. He said, well, he was basically talking about everything is already subsidized, but it's subsidized for the rich. Mm-hmm. I mean, rugged individualism is what's happening on the bottom. But like the billionaires are being subsidized, and he took Walmart for an example. And he said, look, the workers there are not being paid properly. Mm-hmm. They have no health care. They're living off of the government, basically, getting minimum wage and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he was like, man, this is a billionaire family. 4 of the top billionaires are in this one family.
Yep, and I must have went to go refill my drink or go to the bathroom when he stated that. But yes, I've looked at this for a very long time. In fact, probably about, I don't know, almost 2 decades. I looked at the Waltons, one of the richest families in the world. I looked at what they were selling, and A, it was Chinese junk, and then B, most of their workers have to have either food stamps or free health care or something, because they don't make a living wage. And I just think that that's ridiculous. I don't go into Walmart. A, people shoot them up, and I'm just not interested in getting shot. I like my life. And B, it's just crap. Have you walked by their food? I mean, if I have to go get something that is just simply only available at Walmart, and I might go once a year, I walk by the food just to get a feel of it energetically, and I'm like, this food is tainted. Even the organic stuff that they state is organic. I'm like, these people have bottom barrel everything. No one should be grocery shopping at Walmart. And guess what? They have to, because they got 6 kids and they're broke, and that's why they're there. But we shouldn't We shouldn't be shopping there. It's got terrible vibration. And I walk in there and all those fluorescent lights, I'm like, this is the worst place on the planet. And all the staff, they look miserable. And I'm like, oh, we got to do something about this. So I think the millennials, they're barking up the right tree, in my opinion. Sure, they're idiots sometimes and make stupid decisions and they're ridiculous, but I think they really are revolutionaries at heart. And you can see it by what they're not buying, right? If we don't get to vote in a proper voting system, let's vote with our dollar. And so what they're doing is they're not eating at places like Applebee's that's basically grade D or F food being charged for ridiculous prices for that quality of food. So they are eating at Applebee's. They're not buying fabric softener. There's a couple other things that they're not buying. Diamond rings. So what you have are all these boomers that have invested in these businesses being like, oh, God, the millennials aren't buying enough diamonds. Well, they don't have any money to get married. You know, they don't have money to have a family. What do you want? And they don't like fabric softener. It's toxic. It's toxins. Vinegar does a better job than fabric softener, and it doesn't have any toxins in it. It softens your clothes, and it takes care of some static. So, and then Applebee's is shit food, for real. Even in the 90s, I thought that was shit food. And so they're not spending money on these things, and we have big block businesses going down, and that's the power right there, the dollar, where we spend our money, the little bit that we have.
Yeah, and it's not, I can't speak for everybody. I can really just speak for myself, where I am disconnecting myself from a lot of that stuff. And when I do participate, it's minimal at most. And it's not like I feel the need to go out and accumulate. I'm really conscientious about what I am consuming, even in the respect of just purchasing things.
It's good.
And I get to a point where, I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm still
trying. That's a good start.
But it just gets to a point where it's like, man, how is it that this shit is going to keep going on? And the reason why I was really into Andrew Yang is because he understood that we can't keep going on like this. The automated jobs are coming. They're right around the corner. Don't get comfortable in what the fuck you're doing now, because if you're not unionized, you could be out. And if you are unionized, they can do away with the whole union. I mean, it is possible that it gets to that. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, but it's around the corner.
What kind of genres of work do you think will really be affected by that? Surely I can see over the years how computers have taken over, and even the humans are working on the computers more and more for their job. But what area do you see being affected by that, let's say in 30 years? The automation.
If I'm going off of what I'm seeing and what I've been told or what I've heard from listening to it, it's definitely retail.
Retail. Mm-hmm.
And it's transportation as well.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there are no more taxis, no more Uber, Lyft. Everything is just like that fucking Total Recall. Mm-hmm. Remember that when he got into that car and and it was just like a computer driving him around. I mean, it's not going to be to that extent, but it would still be something else driving you around. I can see that. I can see it happening. It's going to be that advanced and that technical. So it goes to a point where, okay, so where is it that we can go? If you're not going into technology and you're not creating something that is going to benefit everybody in a technical manner, or something that has computerized something or another, then are you just going to go into the arts? Are you going to entertain people? And now people are going to come and see you in some way, shape, or fashion, but everybody is broke. So you're just entertaining them to distract them.
Yeah, and then, if everyone's broke, then usually alcoholism soars, unwanted pregnancies soar, all this unpleasant stuff generally soars. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And, I do feel like the automation will take over at some point. But what I've noticed, and I can see this with the internet because I'm old enough to remember before the internet and, of course, when it started getting popular, everyone's like, newspapers will be obsolete, books will be obsolete, give it 20 years, all these things will be obsolete. Well, they've lost some sales, but after the big boom of the internet has kind of sat down a bit, people are like, no, I want books. I want the magazine. I still want to read the paper every once in a while. So I feel like there will always be some nooks and crannies for people to work in, but I do see that the automation being an issue. And if I had to give anyone advice for the future, it's have less children. Just be conscious of how much you breed.
None. I honestly think there's going to be a drop-off in the population. Sometimes I don't really know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a war, if it's going to be an epidemic or
I think it's fertility. I think that we're jacking with our system so bad, and you can see it with how many women and men have fertility problems. Sure, back in the day, a couple hundred years ago, you get the occasional
gender identity problems.
Well, there's that too. So then you even have women that are like, I'm not having kids because I'm a man, or whatever. So you have that, and then you have
or man, I want to have children too. This is not fair.
Adopt one of the many that need homes. That's what everyone should do if they decide that they want to have kids and can't have them. But yeah, I really feel like that one woman, her name's Marie something. She did the minimalist. I can't remember what her name is, but a Congo or something. Anyway, she's really big into this minimalist movement, and I feel really good when I don't buy a bunch of shit I don't need. There's nothing worse than having a bunch of clutter that can really be money in my bank account. And so she was really hitting that really nicely as far as getting people to realize, hey, you don't need all that. You're working yourself to death to buy stuff that you don't need, and you're buying houses that you don't even use half of. Did you watch that documentary, The Minimalist or whatever, where they showed how many rooms in a house that a family of 5 won't even touch in a month? Like the dining room barely got touched, the formal living room barely ever got touched. And these are people just paying to heat and cool these places that don't even get used. And she's like, just get a smaller house. You'll have more money in the bank, or you'll have less house to clean. And I was like, yeah, that was a couple of years ago that came out. That was a good one.
I'm a firm believer in being a minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the smaller the place, the better I am, because I don't need a big place.
Mm-mm.
I really don't. I don't even need more than one room, actually. I mean, besides the kitchen, mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, okay. If that's the smallest I can get, is something that gives me a living room and a dining room somewhat and a kitchen, all right, fine, I'll do that. But I don't even need it because I'm not going to be in there that often. And I'm not comparing my situation to others. I'm simply saying that I know for a fact that we don't need that much room. And I've said for the longest time that I would not be surprised if we all have to get into a situation where we start living with each other more.
Yes, I agree.
I've promoted that for the longest time, that, you have to get with people on the same page as you to start, like, pulling your resources together, because shit is not going to get easier. It's not for a while.
I saw that in Boulder a lot. I saw a lot of grown people living in communities in a house together, a couple houses maybe. Usually it was just one house. And they all were wildly successful. And I was looking at some of them and being like, what's going on here? And I'm like, they're pooling their resources. Of course they can each start their own business when you're not paying $1,000 each for a bedroom. You're pooling your money and getting that rent down to $500, and everyone's cooking together, and you're spending a fraction on the food and what have you, and you can just put it toward your other hobbies or endeavors, which this particular group were big on business. Every one of them, there were 6 of them living in a house together, rich as hell. Great businesses, and they got to get those businesses up and running because of the support of each other and pooling that money, pooling that support. I thought it was brilliant.
Made sense. I mean, it still makes sense. And I mean, Latino or Latina families have been doing it for a long time, and they're still doing it. That's why I say we're gonna have to take pages out of Mexican folks' book, because they figured it out. Because I've seen a number of Mexican folks living in the same house, but all of them are working. They pull their money and they survive.
Yep, and they survive well, and they live
And
minimally.
they thrive.
And they thrive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're egotistical to a point where